Hi, everybody. This is Uncle Matt's D&D Neighborhood, and I'm Matt Finch, and I have with me Jake Armour and also Will Walker. Say hello, guys.
Hey,
Hello.
how you doing?
What we're going to be talking about today, and this I've been thinking about this, is we're going to be talking about a 3D Kickstarter, 3D printing Kickstarter, and I think that I'm going to sort of start a whole series called just making D&D stuff, because I think there are a whole lot of people who make stuff, whether it's 3D printing or whether it's props or whatever the whole thing is, and painting minis. And I figure I'm going to sort of do a series on that, because the other series I do is mainly sort of getting deep into whole gaming theory and D&D stuff, and this is kind of different. We're talking about making things for people to use, which is what you guys are expert in. So let's, Jake, why don't you sort of introduce yourself first, and then Will, introduce yourself.
Yep, my name's Jake. I got into 3D printing last July, so I'm actually pretty new to it. And I got into it due to, I was just browsing, and then, I found Miguel, and he had all those miniatures. And then, I saw Daniel Herrera's video on YouTube talking about the Ender 3, and I was like, hey, that's pretty reasonably cheap. So I took and dove into it, and then I found, Fat Dragon Games. I was real trying to figure out what tile system I wanted to use, and that's a real hard choice because there's so many out there. But I found the forums, met Will. He started his Patreon about the same time. Started talking to him. I did a bunch of test printing, and I was like, you know what? I really want to start making things. I've always been a crafter at heart. I built my own gaming table. The industry that I'm in is a family business, and we're just really hands-on. And I just really like creating things. That's what I love to do.
Okay, so that was last July that you started.
Yeah.
All right, and then when so what is it that you do? Is it that you sculpt, just print? What kind of things do you do?
No, I do. So I do a lot of sculpting using Blender and ZBrush.
Okay.
But I didn't get into it until probably August of last year. And then, I literally spent every night, probably 2 to 3 hours a night, just trying to learn how to use it, how to make my own things.
Wait, so let me ask about the timeline on that then. So July you started.
Yep.
And by the next month you were already I screw all this stuff that's out here. I got to make my own stuff. Is that
pretty much? Yeah. Because like I said, I like creating things, and that's what really, I used to want to be an animator when I, was young. So, getting into doing a 3D model to me is just like, hey, this is a step up to compare to what I'm doing, for real work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, now, Will, you've been on the show before, which is why you had to go second in the list of introducing yourself. But
Well, Jacob should be going first on this, because not only has he, he's talking about how he's new to this. This Kickstarter, Jacob ran this. He has been the primary project director since this thing got started. So,
let me say to anybody who has not done project management on any sort of Kickstarter that has multiple creative types working on it, that is something you should get a medal for when you put something like that together.
Exactly. So.
And let's just talk, just so that people have it in context. The Kickstarter that we're talking about here is Swamp of Sorrows, which is being put out by Ether Studios. And and unless I screwed something up, the link should be in the description of the video. So at some point in the video, if you hear something that sounds interesting about it, and we're going to go into some depth on the detail, some depth in terms of the Kickstarter itself, but just since we're talking about people and making in general, and the reason that I stumbled there was as soon as I said depths, I was like, yeah, but a swamp doesn't really have all that much depth to it. Well, yeah, some of them do, and I just started thinking swamp, and so I managed to finish my sentence, even though my brain was elsewhere for the rest of it. So anyway, Will, so go ahead and go on back to what we were talking about. I just realized that we'd sort of been talking about ourselves and making in general without saying, okay, so here's the Kickstarter that these guys are from. So take it away.
That's all right. The Swamp of Sorrows Kickstarter. No, that's definitely what we're here to talk about today. Jacob had this idea, and it was first voted on by the Dungeon Print community, who's been very supportive to Ether Studios. They've given us a lot of our best sets have come from their requests. A lot of our continuing sets have come with their support. So when they first said that they wanted a Swamp Dungeon tile set, we said, okay, Jacob in particular, this was his idea to take charge of from the very beginning. And we managed to get out over 200 tiles, over 30 miniatures, over 50 pieces of scatter in the first, just the core sets, just the core pledges. I think we're up almost to 40 miniatures now with the stretch goals and just even more tiles, even more scatter. And we have so much further to go. We're so very excited. And we want to thank all of our backers who have gotten us here, 202 last time I checked. So very thankful for your support.
Now, I want to talk first of all about the minis that are involved in this. I particularly like the rat on a barrel. I know it's not the most detailed or the most fantasy-oriented thing out there, but I think everybody, but whether you're talking about dungeons, whether you're talking about taverns, whether you're talking about swamps, everybody needs a rat on a barrel.
Everybody
Right.
needs one. Everybody needs one. Jacob actually, Jacob did those, did a great job on them. We have a fourth model that's still being worked on right now, rat eating cheese. Very
Even
excited
better.
about that.
Even better. There are just some things that you've got to have. I mean, it's like you can have the enormous, complicated, well-painted dragon, but if you get on the gaming table, you put down a model of a rat eating cheese, everyone's just like, winner.
Absolutely right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they were fun. They
Okay,
were real fun.
so all right, so Jake, you're the one that modeled the rat on the barrel. Which other things from the miniatures? And this Kickstarter is divided into categories. You can get just the miniatures, you can get just the terrain, or you can go all in on the whole thing. Let's talk about the miniatures. Jake, what other ones out of the miniatures did you sculpt?
So the ones I did was there's the tree folk. Trying to think.
Crocodiles.
Yeah. You know what? A lot of them, some of them, I've gotten to know a lot of people in the 3D printing, part, sculpting wise. And so, I can't take credit for all of the ones that I've done because on some of them, I've had other sculptors where we did them together, where, they might have done part of the base mesh and then I go in and I do the detailing, stuff like that. But there's some that are coming out that you're going to see. Ones I really did was mud elementals I did. Those were fun. The tree folk, some of the frog guys that I did, but Greywall did such a good work with the base mesh. There's just so many sculptors that, there's probably a handful of sculptors that, I was able to get together and just really coordinate. Hey, this is my idea. This is what I want. Can you do it? For me, the bulk of what I was concentrating on was the terrain. I already knew that for the time that I wanted to put to get the Kickstarter to go, I'd have to give up certain aspects of the miniatures. The whole point of why I started sculpting was because I wanted to create my own miniatures. And I just got sucked into the terrain, due to Will.
Well, there's you'll have other Kickstarters after this one, certainly,
for
where
sure.
you can do that. So let me talk a little bit more about. And Will, were you working on the miniatures or were you working more on the terrain?
Actually, this is great. So I don't do a whole lot of sculpting. I'm not a big sculptor. What I do is much more of shaping what others work with, remixing it and making it align within the specifics of the Dragon Bite tile base and the greater system as a whole. But with the miniatures,
can I just say that really, you've got a career in politics ahead of you after that
thank
sentence.
you.
It was
Thank
a
you.
long
No.
sentence that said very, very little to most people.
Well, it's hard to explain, but what I do is I just slap the triangles around. The triangles are in one place. They're not where they're supposed to be. I slap them around until they get where they're supposed to be, and they print better.
Nope.
That's what I do. I make them go where they're supposed to go. Unfortunately, not every sculpt that we have commissioned gets worked out. But we had a few champions on this project, and that allowed us to focus on taking what they did and taking it to the next level. And by that I mean we had Nassos Maloudis from Greece. He's a member of Ether Studios. He is one of the finest sculptors that God has ever put on a planet.
And he is listening to what you say, because he's one of the people who's in the chat room right now.
He knows how much I love him. Jake, we both love him to death. He's awesome. There's just so much of this Kickstarter that has him all over it. Jacob mentioned Greywall, who did a bunch of wonderful fish and frog miniatures. No,
So Greywall is the fish people, because I like the fish people. Yeah.
And then we had Benjamin Gayer. He's in I believe Germany. He did the turtles for us. Did a fantastic job on the turtles, the Shark Man, the Croc Man. Just amazing work. A few others I got to mention, because I haven't had a chance to publicly speak and say thank you to these guys. So Markham did the most amazing sculpt of the Swamp Hunter, Dectus Talon, who is the NPC from my game.
Which one is the Swamp Hunter?
His name is.
He's the only human. He's
the only
human.
All right, got it. The human. Yeah. All right.
And this is the guy from my game. This is the main NPC, who's the Deus Ex Machina showing up on an airship to save you when you're surrounded by an army. He's the ultimate of ultimate. And so not
he's your Elminster then.
Exactly.
Okay.
And not only did Markham sculpt him, but he sculpted him, and he looks exactly like the namesake of the person I based him on, who's an amazing musician. I love him a lot, and I had to use him for one of my games. He turned into the greatest NPC, and now we have the most amazing sculpt of him in his prime. So,
I mean, other ones I'd like to say is Black Omen. You know, he did the giant croc for us. Cast and Play, they did a couple witches.
Jason Surlock.
And then Madcap Miniatures. I mean, he did a good handful of miniatures, and his detail in his miniatures is just, it shows. You know, he did two. You saw one of the what is it? The trolls. So there's the war troll, and then there's going to be a stone troll that's coming out. It hasn't been unlocked yet. But he did the trolls. He did a couple of the Azites. You know, they pretty much look like the snake people that are in the core. I mean, he did an amazing job.
I wasn't sure whether those were snake people or mer people, because I never saw the end of a tail to see whether it was a fish or whether it was
Naga.
A snake.
You know, you can use them for almost whatever you want. You know.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a criticism. I was just saying I couldn't tell. You know, it could. You see scales going down from the thing, and it's like, okay, that could be a fish, could be a snake. Don't know. It's in a swamp. It might have been a fish. So, all right. So there's a huge number of people who are backing this, and I noticed one of the things is it looks like you have got, at the very least, renders of pretty much everything. I mean, I didn't see any concept art so far coming out. It looks like there's renders of everything, and I wasn't even sure whether those are print tested yet. I mean, you build the thing. You can build the thing just for a render, and then you can build the thing to where it's actually going to work, and then you check it using a program like that. I mean, how far? In general, most of these Kickstarters are done with some that are finished, but most, about half of it concept art. You guys are obviously further ahead than that. How much further ahead is it? Are these like print tested already? Or?
Printed, tested, painted.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through the bulk of the core. All the core is printed, tested, and I've even painted most of it. I'm going to get some more pictures this weekend of even the miniatures. I've even painted the miniatures um, out to them to see. And probably I'm probably only have like 25% of the stretch goals left. There's not that much left. I'm trying to get it all. It all takes time, but we're getting there. It's my whole plan was, I wanted to have everything ready to a certain 80% to 75% of it ready to go before the Kickstarter, because the whole plan is to get it to their hands, when the Kickstarter ends. I know we have it set until August, but you better bet we're probably going to be sending them out within, once the funding gets through, it should be out within a week or two for the core at least.
Right. Well, are you using backer kit where people can add extras, or I mean, because a lot of times just the bookkeeping after Kickstarter takes a while before you can get stuff out.
They've certainly been approaching us. We haven't made any firm decisions about it. We haven't really even talked to them yet about it. We're not too worried yet.
Oh, backer kit's not usually. I mean, I can tell you a little bit about backer kit. If you are shipping stuff and if you have different possible things that are going to get shipped physically to people, then backer kit's a great thing. If what you're doing is delivering electronic files to people where all that they need to do is send you an email address, usually backer kit is not worth the additional cost. Plus, there's a learning curve to using it as well. So unless you guys are doing something fancy, backer kit's probably not a great idea.
Thankfully, the quick, expeditious delivery of files to our customers is one of the things we've been doing very well for a long time.
Right, because you've got a Patreon, and so you guys are all set. How are you going to deliver it? Are you going to use RPG Now, or without? And I should say, or One Bookshelf, or Drive-Through RPG, or all the possible things that are all the same thing.
We're looking at a lot of options. I can't imagine us not having the set on Drive-Through RPG. We have not had a discussion about it not being on there, so it's going on there, right?
And that's really easy delivery too, because you put your list of emails in there. You hit the thing, and it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Result equals 1. Result equals 1 as it goes through.
Well, and you have it for future. You just log into your account, and boom, there they are.
Yeah.
So that is our current method for delivery planned. Although we'll try and make adjustments as needed for other customers who don't use Drive-Through RPG or who might have some kind of special need.
Okay. All right. So that I've forgotten how we even got onto the delivery. Let's see. We were talking about backer kit. The backer kit was a good idea. That was because you were talking about how quickly they were going to be delivered. That was because I was asking how far along you guys were with it. So circling back, you guys are a lot further along than most 3D printing Kickstarters are, which is, granted, sculpting minis is something that can be done fairly quickly with a fast turnaround. So I'm not saying that other people are doing anything wrong. It's just that you guys are considerably further along in the process than most people are at the time they launch a Kickstarter.
We were particularly blessed to have a lot of time to work on this. Actually, I think Jacob could probably answer this better than I can.
Yeah, I mean, I started working on it in January, and it's just been nonstop on my end. I've been going at it. I probably took maybe a 2-week break for a family vacation, and that was about it. And then other than that, with the support of Nasos and Will and, the different people that we can, trust to test our files on top of me testing everything. I put everything on the Ender 3 and test it and pre-support it, and double check it, but, having the access of just the community that we've built up is just a huge help.
Now, and I will say what you guys can't say, which is that getting a community that large, again, to work together on a creative process is like herding cats. And y'all, I'm sure, will not say that because you've got people watching it, and you know it's all coming together and it's all great. But Yeah, that is quite an achievement to have that many people working on a project like this. I mean, most of these are, maybe maybe
If,
one
if you,
in-house sculptor, and then somebody, who's freelanced in to help with the thing. But getting that many people working together simultaneously is really something, and it shows, too. There's a wide variety of different sculpting styles that you can see in the stuff. I mean, you look at the terrain is one of the areas where I was interested in that, because you've got a lot of reeds and plants and things that are coming up, and I liked the fact that you took into account the fact that this stuff is going to have to go onto a 3D printer and print out, with the result of being you looked for ways of making chunks rather than having little stems and things like that. You accumulated your stuff, built something that's large enough to print well and be visible on a table and be interesting to paint. I'm mainly thinking about those reeds. I don't the stuff I'm talking about.
yes, those were a real challenge for sure. There is no doubt. We had a lot of fun playing with sizes and figuring out what worked. We're still working. I think we're still trying to make some improvements. Even now, we'd like to try and do things a little better. But you mentioned before about how hard it can be to have a group of people work together. The truth of it is that any problem can be solved by enough hard work. And any one person with enough hard work can change the world. A group of people committed to an ideal, like those of us at Ether are, that what we do, our projects, our terrain, help people have the best games they can possibly have, help them enjoy what is for them usually the best part of their week, makes a real difference. With us being committed to that, there's nothing that's impossible. And
now you've got one or two things where somebody can, speaking about that, one of the real fun moments about using terrain is the moment you put something down on the table and everyone goes, whoa. And there are a couple of pieces like that in this Kickstarter. One of them that I like, and you already know one of the ones I'm going to talk about, but I like the fact that there is a moss-covered colossal rib cage with ribs sticking out of the thing, which I thought was just wonderful to have that in the swamp. That'll totally get the whoa reaction.
yes,
and then
I was going to say, we have those built into convenient tile sections for easy alignment, as well as scatter terrain for those who just want to use a simple vinyl map, plop some stuff on top.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the great things about tiles in dungeons that stuff sticks together where it's supposed to be is, I think, a little bit less important in outside.
Indeed.
Outside areas. I don't. If I were doing a swamp, I wouldn't. You have all of the stuff for somebody to print out tiles. There's all kinds of ground terrain and lily pads and mud and stuff like that. But if I were doing one, I would be picking out the signal important pieces that I wanted to do, and so that would be the one of them being the rib cage, and the other one is a really nice piece, the ancient trunk tower, and that's it's a tree, but it's got a balcony, and you've got the picture of one of the frog people up on it.
Yes, that is the fine work of Nassos Maloutis. That is a very special story.
Tell the story. Tell the story. Stories are always
great. Come on, Will. Tell me the story.
All right. So we were getting really close to the edge the last week of this Kickstarter, of getting ready to launch the Kickstarter. And Jacob, who is the project director, whose word is law on this project, had said, we are done with the terrain portion. There shall be no further portions. I'm signing off for the night. I'll be back in a few hours. Well, then Willie and Nassos get together. Willie sees Nassos' amazing ancient trunk tree tower that he's just done. Willie takes a look at it and says, sure, we can squeeze this into terrain, no problem. Totally forgetting that, there's a part of the brain that just takes the important information sometimes and just puts it in a little box and says, Jacob will forgive you. But the truth is that it was only barely able to happen. Only able to happen because Jacob did a lot of hard work to get it printed just before the launch, get the pictures taken. Nassos went and I'm sure missed an entire night of sleep doing the repair work for it after the test prints to make sure it was good and make this huge internal space and beautifully designed inside with space for like 6 miniatures to interact. And there's so much I could say about it, but the truth is that if on launch day I had had a black eye, I would have deserved it for the trouble I put Jacob through with this ancient trunk tree tower.
It's a beautiful piece. It really is.
It
Yeah,
is.
it is. I mean, the internal space is big. How many pieces? That must be cut into multiple printed pieces.
Yeah, we cut it into 3. There's 3. It's 3 pieces. So you got your bottom floor, your middle floor, and then you got the top.
Oh, so you got all of one. You're printing all of one floor as one piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
It fits on Ender 3.
Yep.
And we have another one of these tree towers hiding in the stretch goals.
Oh yeah.
Very cool.
It is a very cool one.
All right, so that's for people to take note of, because anybody who's still listening to this is either somebody who has backed the Kickstarter or who is still right on the edge of thinking, do I really want to buy something from these crazy people and set them loose with cash in the world to buy ice cream and stuff? But so there is, for all of you guys who are wondering whether to give these guys ice cream money, there is another one of these awesome tree things in the stretch goal. Take note.
Oh yeah,
including
there's a lot of they're gonna see probably by the end of the weekend, because I'll be posting more of the stretch goals up. I'm just finalizing the renders to make sure that they're good, but they're gonna be in shock when they see what's in store. I can tell you that.
Raz Knocklash for sure is going to turn a few heads.
Yeah.
The giant demon frog of evil is waiting.
Excellent. Since I can't argue with that, since most of my work is done with Frog God Games.
It's definitely going to be a god. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's an evil god. That's for sure. At least one that eats humans.
All right, so then just sort of covering general stuff that's in the Kickstarter. You've got lots of sort of what you would expect for a swamp. The wooden walkways going around, and those are scatter terrain so that you can connect stuff. Mm-hmm. You've got a swamp shack. I couldn't tell from looking at the swamp shack. Are those modular pieces, or is it just a single piece that's cut into multiples for printing?
So it's a modular piece. You'll be able to basically design whatever building you want. Okay. The only limitations is the roof, because the roofs I basically built for it are 4x4, but they're also modular as well, because you can do like I call it a shotgun building where it's straight back, but then you can also do the L-shape buildings. You can really do a lot with the pieces. I think there's probably about 8 to 9 different roof designs to help you basically create whatever size building you want for it.
Yeah, roofs are a bitch. Roofs are really a bitch.
Well, now you know what? The beautiful thing. This is what's really great about it, because this is a Dragon Bite exclusive set. We are staying within the parameters of the Dragon Bite tile system. We have very specific, alignments and tolerances we use. These tiles will be able to use the many, many other roofs that are available to Dragonlock products.
That's a very
Dragon
good.
Bite
That's
products.
a very good point, because anyone who's not familiar with it, we should take a second to talk about the Dragon Bite community, because that, and also the Dragon Lock, which is the brand
The
name
official.
Tom Tellis uses for the official stuff that comes from Fat Dragon Games. But there's a
Right.
very big community called the Dragon Bite community, who produce tiles that interact with the ones from Fat Dragon Games. And so what Will is pointing out here is that you're going to get several modular pieces, for the Swamp Shack, but that there are lots and lots and lots of other roof systems that have been created by this other community that you can get, and they're very inexpensive most often. So if you don't like whatever kind of roof it is that goes on your Swamp Shack, you can usually find several other roofs that look different that then will work with this. And that's what Will was talking about when he said, if some of the triangles are in the wrong place, I move them to the right place. That's because that was all about making it fit with the other stuff. So see how I brought this back to the very beginning? I'm proud of myself.
I'm proud of you too. Yeah, and there's different styles. We have just the plain shack, and then you have the old wore down where it's all cracked. And then there's also
you got your shack, and then you've got your really crappy shack.
Right, and then you even have the cracked shack that has a bunch of moss just growing all over it. So there's 3 different options. There's probably, man, there's a lot of tiles. It's been fun, that's for sure.
We have just had such a wonderful time on this project, and it's been the best time. Most.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that I don't think people see is like the Hydra. The Hydra, it has 3 heads, but it's interchangeable, so you can swap the heads out to go from 3 heads to 4 heads to 5 heads to 6 heads.
Really, that you ought to make that clearer.
I'm trying to do a video with it where it shows it. That's what I really want to do. I'm trying to get that out hopefully sometime next week.
Because that's some badass engineering there.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was cool. I mean, the guy, I brought it to Nikki's Hatchery. We didn't even give him a shout out, but Nikki's Hatchery, real good guy. I said, hey, look, this is what I want. I gave him my concept art of saying, hey, this is what I want it to look like. And I said, hey, this is how I want it designed. We're going to chop the heads here, and, we'll bullion it and make it so that people can swap it out. We did the pegs. I thought about doing magnets, but then, you're going to have to tell people, oh, hey, you have to go buy magnets. And so I just went with the pegs, but they're interchangeable. I mean, it is one of the coolest minis that I've seen.
Also, just to point out that these don't use any slicer supports. Everything is either internally supported or doesn't need supports at all.
That's right. That's right. I think what we're doing too is we're giving, we're doing the fully supported. That way, it's for ease for people with the FDM printers. But a lot of people they have the photon. They don't want the pre-supports. So we're going to have the files as well for the photon users, so they can print them on their own with, without the pre-supports, because they'll do their own pre-generated with the photons. That's what the what is it called? It's the SLA printers, or D something. I can't remember.
You got me. I've got an Ender 3. I put stuff on it. I print it. It prints.
Exactly.
Sometimes it breaks, and then I wait a long, long time and finally figure out what's wrong with it. I'm not one of the people who knows different types of printers or different types of filament and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of the miniatures, I printed on my resin printer, and I'm just putting it straight on the the bed, and I'm not even doing supports on the photon. It's just printing straight off the bed, which is a real feat in itself as well. But I print everything on FDM because I want to make sure it passes, and then after that I'll throw it on the photon if I really want to see the detail, because resin just really makes it pop,
Yeah, see, I was going to have to ask what's a photon, so now I know it's a resin printer. Okay, so I'm good. I don't have to show that I didn't know that, except that I just showed that I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's one of the cheapest resin printers. I think it goes for like $380. So it really
Amazing
competes for
quality.
miniatures.
Absolutely amazing quality.
Of course, it's like poisonous fumes and stuff, right? Don't you have to worry about that with resin?
It depends on what resin you're using, but a lot of them you can't even smell it.
Yeah, well, that's the best. That's the best kind of poison, though.
I definitely
Sneaks
worry
up on you.
significantly more about the environmental hazards of spilling it than the fumes. The fumes do not bother me. It's pretty well contained and well ventilated. Not worried about that. I worry that Amazon's going to drop a box and it's going to bust open and spill in my yard far more than that I'm going to die from fumes. Them spilling a box would be a real tragedy, as unlikely as that is.
My son's just coming in from work, so that distracted me for a second. All right, yeah. There's also there are little boats, which obviously necessary for a swamp. I'll mention here once again. I don't take money from people who are. This is not a paid advertisement. This is me talking to people about actual stuff where I went out and said hey, let's do a show about this. Just so that so everyone knows. I probably should have said that right at the beginning, but
now they have a reason to watch it.
Right,
Just
right.
get to the point.
So and another one of the pieces that I liked was you've got a one-piece squid, and a lot of people have the krakens where the tentacles come out of the ground, but you guys have a squid that's based on an actual piece, which I thought was kind of useful too. If you've got how big is that piece? I mean, granted, you can scale it up or scale it down.
I mean, it's a large size mini, I believe.
So yeah, 50 millimeter.
I did that one with another artist. His name is MV Dostoevsky, and he is very talented. He's brand new, absolutely brand new to the industry. Wanted to get started. I liked some of his work, so we contracted him out for this squid and for a few other pieces. And I was very fortunate to be the one to kind of, the way he delivered it, it really wouldn't have printed. But if I submerged it and I slapped a lot of triangles around, we got this final just writhing squid. And like you said, it's a beauty. Yeah. And yeah, he did great work on it, and I'm very pleased I had the opportunity to work with him.
All right, so let's go ahead and start wrapping up with final thoughts. There have got to be some things that I've missed because we didn't talk a long time before we got on here. It was basically like Jake's like I pulled over from traffic. Here I am. Let's go. So there have got to be some things that you guys would like to say about the Kickstarter that you may not have had a chance to get out up until now. So what have I missed in terms of the questions?
You got anything, Will?
I was gonna say this is our first Kickstarter. Yeah. To have this level of support means the world to us. So if there's anything I think needs being said, especially, thank you to our fans, our backers, our supporters, the people who have made this success possible already, have gotten us here. Thank you so much. We love you.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, it's got 20 days left. And so you guys have got 203 backers. So it's pretty strong. You're at 13,830 at the moment that I'm taking a look at it. In fact, I think it nudged up a little bit during the show. So I think we may have had a couple people go in and buy it. Yeah, I mean, it's looking very strong. 20 more days to go. That's great.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I was real shocked. It's been doing amazing. It's above and beyond what I expected. Yeah, I just want to make sure we had a good, solid product that people would want to play with. And I didn't want to stick with just tiles. I wanted to include the scatter because I think scatter is real important. Because I use scatter all the time for my campaigns. And then, you know, most of the time I'm using tiles for buildings or even for, you know, walkways around. And that's why I wanted the swamps. I wanted to give the aspect of, hey, these tiles look like the water. It looks like, you know, stuff can come from underneath. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's been real fun. You know, I can't imagine going on a different ride with someone else besides Will. Will's been amazing. You know, he's supported me. He took me under his wing from the get-go, and not a lot of people or sculptors do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's been amazing. So,
Will, any final thoughts?
I love this guy right here. It's hard to say it, but I love him to death. He makes me a better hobbyist, a better crafter. He pushes me to new heights. I just want to say again, thank you to Nassos. I love you too, buddy. We did it, fellas. We did it.
yeah.
So yeah, it's time to take a victory lap, even though the Kickstarter is not done with. I mean, if you've covered your costs, you're good. It's rolling in from that point. That's great.
Absolutely. And thank you again to all the artists who helped us out here, who gave us their time and their effort, who allowed us to draw from the well of their experience and their talent to make something that we wanted to see made.
All right, and then I'm gonna have to think of some kind of new tagline for the ones that have to do with making D&D stuff. But for now, let me go ahead and I'll just sign off with the old tagline that I usually use, which is no matter what kind of Dungeons and Dragons it is that you play, imagine the hell out of it.